Hello, everyone. Sorry, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and we constantly discuss and sort of observe the certain trends and topics and things of that nature going on in the world right now. And, some of the biggest occurrences that are happening in the world have to do with health and wellness and that whole kind of community of being super fit, working out, lifting, bodybuilding is a major thing nowadays. Getting in your protein, all the multitudes of different diets, exercises, lifestyle changes, and things of that nature. But funnily enough, and obviously this isn't truly funny, but it is funny in an ironic way, that this is obviously one of the times in history where people are the sickest. We just had a worldwide pandemic. People are coming down, so many young people especially are coming down with cancers and chronic illnesses, autoimmune issues, all sorts of, things of that nature, myself included. And, I've always said in my life that I could be the poster child for so many situations and scenarios in the world that have been trendy for essentially my entire life. I could be out there, I could be angry, I could be the most aggressive linebacker of an activist for so many different topics that happen in the world right now. And, you can agree with me or not, agree to disagree, that's all right with me, but I just don't, because, I don't subscribe to that kind of mindset or behavior of certain things. I don't think that these scenarios or situations that occur to, that happen to me or around me or anything like that has anything to do with who I truly am, and I don't have to, put myself in these boxes that society and people around me tell me that I need to fit in. But that's besides the point that I want to make. The real point that I want to make is that you can't cheat death. Period. And it's I always tell people, especially now that I've gotten older and I've gone through my own trials and tribulations in life. I have spoken a couple times on my page about the fact that I was very severely depressed as a teenager. So severely, in fact, that, as a very young girl, 17 years old, I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder with catatonic episodes. I had delusions. I had, all kinds of insanities going on with me. And I always say to people that I don't trust anybody that hasn't died while they're still alive. You know what I mean? I don't trust people who haven't died a couple times while they're still alive. And by, that figurative version of death, basically destroying whatever life or a mindset or a belief or behavior, along those lines that you have created for yourself, or maybe society has created for you. If you haven't killed that off a couple times already, I don't know if I could trust you. Is kind of the joke that I have. But death in general, physical death, literal death, you can't cheat it. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter how quote unquote healthy you are. It doesn't matter how well you eat, how much you work out, all of the supplements you take, all the IVs that you do. And this is coming from somebody who does an IV treatment once a month for 2 years now to treat a chronic illness. So I'm not knocking it. I'm not hating on it. I think that while we're alive, right, we can choose to do things. It doesn't mean that you should just abandon the idea of health or wellness, right? Not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that you can't cheat fucking death. We're all going to die. It's the only thing we have to do in life. When people tell you that you don't have a choice to change things, you don't have a choice about this, you should be this way, you should be that way, you should live your life in a certain way. There are certain parameters that society tells you need to do. And especially nowadays, health and wellness are one of the biggest ones. You should have abs. You should be working out 5 to 6 times a week. You should be eating a certain way, whether it's, keto, whether it's carnivore, whether it's vegan, whether it's paleo, whether it's pescatarian, whether it's super raw, only whole foods, whether it's taking 20 supplements in a day during the day, whether it's doing all kinds of nonsense. You are not going to cheat death. You are not going to cut corners to dying. You're just not. None of those things are going to stop you from either being burned and thrown somewhere in the ether, or 6 feet under the ground, buried and becoming worm food. You will never cheat death. You will never be able to avoid it. You will never. It doesn't matter anything. Nothing that you do will ever avoid what's coming to you. And it's coming to all of us. And that's okay. That is okay. And I think that, I think that this subconscious fear of death is causing so many people to become ill. And obviously that's not to say I'm not one of those people that wholeheartedly believes that, oh yeah, all disease is caused by mental issues or psychological issues, emotional issues, stuff like that. Do I think that diseases can be exacerbated and, pushed and really triggered by that stuff? Yes, 1,000%, because I experienced it. I lived it in my life. And the more that I released and dealt with my own emotional, mental, psychological, spiritual issues, the better I felt and the healthier I got. So I do think that that is a big play. I do think that that is a massive, major thing when it comes to diseases just manifesting in the body in general, and also just disease and issues in life. A lot of it comes from resistance and rejection, suppression of things. And right now, a big collective and societal suppression that we have is death. Everybody is afraid to die. Everybody is afraid of what they consider to be this mediocrity, right? And in a utopian society, things last forever. Things live forever. They're perfect, right? And that's not reality. It's not the case. It's just not real. It's not what's going to happen, and I think we see this manifesting more and more in society. We see more and more young people getting sick. You see tons of young people getting cancers or, like I said, autoimmune diseases. I'm one of them. I got sick prior to this whole major kind of societal, I guess, trend of this stuff happening. But even so, I'm still a part of it. I'm not saying I'm not, right? But I'm also in the best place I've ever been with my health. My autoimmune diseases are in remission right now. I have everything under control and am on the path to completely tapering all of my medication off. You know what I mean? So it's and it's not because I did some crazy diet. It's not because I work out every single day of the week. It's not because I take tons of supplements. It's not because I do a cold plunge or I run 7 miles, a day with a run club. It's not because of any of that. It's not because I lift or do this, that, and the third. Those things depending on your lifestyle, depending on your issues, depending on what's going on with you, can they help? Yes and no. Sometimes, you're actually beating up your body way more than you are helping it. It's like we're in a society right now that are so obsessed with this physical world, so obsessed with our physical selves and the way that we look and the way that we present and all this stuff, but we've never been more disconnected from our bodies. That's why we keep getting sick. That's why we're afraid of death. That's why we are so fearful of this stuff, as if we want to find ways to live forever. It's why we're obsessed with things like skincare or makeup or anything like that, on the underlining surface. Because we want to be perfect collectively at this point. We want to be perfect. We want to live forever. We want to have this utopian society. And it's all because of the suppression and this fear of death. We're afraid of things ending. Our attachment to the world and how we know it and our identity to the world is dying. And it's difficult for us as a society to be able to deal with that. It's just the truth. And it's just like, I get it. Obviously, when I was a kid and growing up, and even still sometimes now, my biggest fear was and is death. And I've died multiple times now in my short period of life here on this earth. I have died so many times. I have destroyed my life, everything I thought I knew about the world, everything I thought I knew about myself, everything I thought I knew about everything and everyone around me. I have picked things up and burnt them to the ground multiple times now. I have died and transformed myself and my life multiple times now. And it's not easy. It's not easy to die. It's not easy to let things go. It's not easy to detach. It's one of the hardest things that I've ever done in my fucking life. It's still difficult for me. There are days where I just cry and I struggle and it's fucking hard, but it's unavoidable. Nothing lasts forever. You don't. I won't. I say this now, and a few years from now, I'm gonna have to destroy these ideas and thoughts and mindsets and all sorts of things of that nature, but it's unavoidable. We can't cheat death. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter how you live your life. It just doesn't. None of that matters. You give it meaning, which is, it's a privilege and it's a freedom and it's a responsibility. But you can't cheat it. It doesn't matter. Society is just so obsessed with it nowadays. It's so obsessed with finding ways to cheat death. It's so obsessed with this youth, this fountain of youth and wellness, and trying to prolong something that its beauty is in its fact that it's temporary. Its value and its meaning is in the fact that it's temporary, and that's okay. It is okay. But, the more we suppress it, the worse we're going to be. The sicker we're going to get. The more mentally ill people are going to get. The more delusional people are going to get. More people having psychosis. More people having eating disorders. More people feeling disconnected from themselves and others, people around them. More people separating themselves from society as a whole. And just in general, it's like we're going to reach this state of avoidance. I mean, we're already in it. We're already in this suppression and rejection of death, suppression and rejection of, technically it's really a suppression and rejection of life when you think about it, because there is no life without death. So when you suppress and reject death, you're not living, you're not alive. You're not really living. You're not really healthy. You're not really present in the world when you reject the fact that there will be a lack of your presence in the world eventually. The fact that you will not be alive eventually. The fact that you can't avoid these pitfalls and different things that happen in life eventually. And it's okay. It's okay that these things happen, but yeah, it's just been on my mind this morning, and something that I discuss a lot with different friends, and I just think it's important that we think about this a bit more deeply. What are the ways in which that we reject the natural parts of life? Death is one of the most natural things that occurs in the world. It happens every day, every single second. Every moment you're dying, literally. We're dying right now. I'm dying right now. I don't know about you, but I'm dying right now. And that's okay. It's scary. It's scary because, you can't control it. You don't know when it's going to happen, how it's going to happen, where, or with who, or all alone. You don't know. And that's frightening. And you know what? I'm not judging anybody for wanting to prolong their life. You know what I mean? I want to prolong my life. I tell people I want to live to 105 just for the historical reasons. You know what I mean? The biggest gift I could be given in life is to be able to see 3 centuries of a life. I was born in the late 90s, so, to be able to say, oh, I was alive in the 20th century, the 21st century, and the 22nd century, just because I'm such a big history nerd and I love stuff like that. I have to live to at least 105. So I'm not knocking that idea of wanting to be healthy, to prolong life, to have an active lifestyle or anything like that. I'm not. I think those things can be good, and I think, like with everything, in moderation. Even health and wellness in moderation, right? Debauchery in moderation. But, death, I guess you could even say death in moderation, right? Everybody should die a little bit before they die. Just in moderation, just for a balance in this life. You need to have a little bit of death sprinkled everywhere. Like with everything else, I'm like I said, it's not to say that these things are bad. Nothing is inherently bad or good, but that's the exact point. It's like right now we're trying to sell this idea of how a perfect society, a perfect world, a perfect this or that would be, and people are really trying to sell this sham. I mean, that's exactly what it is. It's a sham. That a certain diet, a certain lifestyle, a certain exercise, certain skincare product, a certain makeup, a certain clothing, a certain anything, a certain environmental thing, a certain this way or that way, a political stance, a freaking, side, a this or that. They're trying to promote these things as subconscious ways to cheat death in life. That's really what it is, to cheat this idea of the temporary. And it's just not healthy, and we're going to have a sicker and sicker society the longer that we suppress and repress this fear of death, this fear of not being here any longer. But it's in that knowing, it's in that acceptance that we see just how precious our lives are. We see how important it is to be kind to others and to be understanding, to be more compassionate, to have more empathy, to take control in the ways that we can, to be responsible for ourselves and our lives, our choices, to have accountability for our consequences and our actions and everything along those lines. That's what makes life so precious, is the fact that it doesn't last. And the more that we fight, the more that we latch on to something that was never ours, it's not going to be pretty.